Welcome everyone.
Hi to everyone joining, welcome, and thank you for joining us in our third instalment of Realliance's Designing Regenerative Change webinar series. And today's session is about designing for action. So thank you for joining us, and we'll get started.
Super lovely to be here with you. My name's James and this is Jackie. So we're from the Realliance Core Coordination team. And just like Jackie said, today is all about designing. So as part of this Designing Regenerative Change series, we've been looking at the design process. So how do we go through with our communities, with our partners, go through a process of designing that helps us to observe and look at what's happening around us already, what resources we have, mapping out and co-creating some spaces. And this session is all about looking at what we've learned from the visioning stage, from thinking about the possibilities and envisioning what change we could create, through to the mapping of the resources and looking at what resources are available to us and what spaces we need to map, whether that's more psychological spaces or physical land-based spaces. And now we've come onto the part of the process which is about design. And we might kind of think of this as almost learning from what we have observed previously and what we know, and bringing that all together. So kind of putting our vision, our ideas onto paper, as it were, whether it's physical paper or more metaphorical. So today in this session on design, we have a few very special guests that we're very excited to introduce to you in a moment. And we also have some activities for you to try. So how might you learn from what you've seen and what you've visioned in the previous sessions and put that down ready for action, which is very exciting.
Exactly. So without further ado from us, we're going to hand over to one of our Realliance members, Arnima Jain from Tarun Bharat Sangh, an NGO working in India. And I'll let her explain the rest. She's going to be speaking you through how they use some design thinking and design processes as a core part of their activities, the importance of this, and some insight that you can see if it applies in your context as well. So over to you, Arnima.
Thanks so much, Arnima, and hello.
Hello James, hello Jackie. This is Arnima from Tarun Bharat Sangh, which is an Indian NGO dedicated to addressing climate change, water conservation, rural development and sustainable agriculture. Today I would like to share our experience of implementing design thinking in a project supported by Regenerative in one of the disadvantaged districts called Dholpur, which is in Rajasthan, India. So Dholpur faces significant challenges like including migration, antisocial activities, low literacy rates, gender imbalance, which has been identified as one of the aspirational districts by Niti Aayog. It was like a program which was initiated by Government of India to mark all those areas, all those districts which are like performing very poor on certain indicators. So the majority of the population stays in rural areas and is from marginalized community, and which constitutes like the more than 50% of the population is from scheduled tribes, scheduled castes. Agriculture and animal husbandry remains one of the most important livelihood option in this area. But due to the semi-arid type of climate, Dholpur has its own natural variations, which is leading to occasional droughts, water scarcity, and this has resulted in leading to farmers to forcefully migrate to areas, nearby cities, leaving their farms parched. So the agriculture sector has possessed significant challenges in that area. So to address, the problem of water scarcity, where women used to travel 2 to 3 kilometers every day just to fetch little water so that they can pass the whole day. So what we did was we applied design thinking as a problem-solving approach for the particular area that is Dholpur in Rajasthan. Let me share the key steps which we took for the area. First was empathize, the second was define, ideation, prototyping, testing, implementation, and evaluation. I would like to share the brief about each and every key steps which we took. First was empathizing. So we conducted a need-based assessment following the AEIOU framework. A stand for activities, E for environment, I for interaction, O for object, and U for users. For activities, what we did was we closely observed each and every task which women and men of that particular area usually take. That is the daily clock, the daily activity clock of that particular area. So this method, also known as ask and look, allowed us to gather valuable insights about their activities, sequence of activities. Next was environment. Our team observed how the community interact with their environment, their facilities, methods, and systems. Like we studied the distance to the water resources, how much time they spend on fetching the water, how the communities utilize them, what are the roles of different individuals within agriculture, such as the men, women, kids, what are their roles and responsibilities. Next was object. We carefully observed like how the communities are using traditional methods, old or new methods for irrigation purposes, for drinking water purification and other related areas. So this involved like analyzing the tools, the devices which people use, and how and what how they relate to their tasks. It was like a part of the empathizing activity. And users, we also studied like the characteristics, the needs, the goals, the preferences of that particular area, like how the behavior is getting influenced, what are their experiences of the communities. And we helped, it led a way, it led a pathway to understand the community in detail. So to further enhance their understanding, we created an empathy map, like what they feel, what they say, what they think, and what they do. So this, by combining these elements, it helped us to build effective solutions for the community in a meaningful manner. And next was define. So during our partnership with the Regenerosity, we used various tools of define stage to gain insights and define the problem, which was at the core in Dholpur district. So the key statements we developed were the insight statements, like the strong desire of sustainable solutions, that can be implemented for clean drinking water, improved irrigation methods, and like what assistance the community was seeking from Tarun Bharat Sangh and other partners. Next was by capitalizing the community reliance on agriculture and animal husbandry, we realized that we can design solutions that can enhance all those activities and foster community led water conservation efforts. And how next was how might we statement, like what we did was how might we create inclusive and scalable solutions that empower rural communities in Dholpur. So these solutions must address the antisocial elements which were present in the society, to address youth migration, to address gender imbalance, while simultaneously improving the water security for that region. So these statements served as guideposts for our design process. Next stage was ideation. In ideation stage, we developed actually some solutions which could address the challenges which were identified. Uh, what we did was we did a DFV analysis. D stands for desirability, F for feasibility, and V for viability. So we these three things helped us to design a project proposal for the Regenerosity. So we defined the goal, we defined the objective, and we defined the activities which will be taking place. So the goal was building climate resilience for the rural communities by ensuring sustainable water security. So our objective was to train the farming communities to create mobilization activity, so that there is cohesiveness amongst the community. And the next was implementing landscape rainwater harvesting structures for them and improving water efficiency in agriculture. So, prototyping and testing, when we realized that Tarun Bharat Sangh has already rejuvenated rivulets in the neighboring district of Alwar, we implemented the same time-tested model in Dholpur district to to solve the problems of water scarcity. Last was evaluation. Implementation I've already shared with you, like how we implemented the project. Next was evaluation. I'm sure you will be amazed to see the results in Dholpur district. The design thinking, like the basically how communities was kept at the center of the project, it helped to define our solutions. And when the solutions were implemented in such a manner that the result was noticeable in less than a 1 year, when it rained, when the rainwater harvesting structures got filled with water, we could see the results, we could see the impact. So, for example, say wheat crop. The farmers did not sow wheat crop because there was no water. But now, once the water was there, once the irrigation facility was there, the productivity per unit of land increased by 66%, which led to 123% increase in income per unit. Next was mustard crop. The productivity per land was increased by 6%, resulting in 19% rise in the income per unit. Green fodder. Farmers, they left their animals. They used to abandon their animals because there was no water to grow food for animals. But once the water was available, there was green fodder in the area, and the health of the animals got better. They produced more milk. The quality of the milk was improved. There was increased access to vegetables, so which is helping the area to solve the problem of malnutrition. Currently, we are in the stage of evaluating the project's impact, but we are thrilled to see the outcomes we have observed so far. So, this was it from my side. And on behalf of Taran Bharat Sangh, I would like to thank you guys for providing us an opportunity to share one of our crucial design thinking step project, which was in collaboration with Regenerosity. And I'm always grateful to the Regenerosity team for helping us over, for appreciating our efforts, and which give us more strength to improve the condition of the society. Thank you.
Arnima, thank you so much for sharing, and it was so wonderful to hear about your perspective of implementing design thinking in your program at Taran Bharat Sangh. So thank you so much, Arnima, for sharing your wisdom and your experience. And what I really loved about hearing from Arnima is kind of that whole process that she went through. She really went through a whole design process, which was really interesting to see, from the envisioning to what she called the prototyping phase, and also through the implementation, and seeing those fantastic results that Arnima mentioned. So it was really, really wonderful to hear about this.
I also really loved the AEIOU framework. I hadn't heard that one before, but I think the whole reason we're looking at design, I imagine it is kind of quite different from the planning that's all the practical steps. This is kind of that opportunity to take a step back and consider, from a holistic regenerative perspective, other aspects that, maybe would be left off if you just focused on kind of the bare practicalities. But I thought that the AEIOU kind of framework really brought that together quite clearly. So as James mentioned, we're going to move on to some activities at the end of the session, and one of the resources that we will provide along that as well is the one that we just shared of Arnima's AEIOU framework. So have a go at home.
So thank you so much, Arnima, for that great inspiration. Yeah, and we can't wait to try it out with you, our watchers, as well too. So thank you so much. And Arnima mentioned that she was co-designing a program with an organization called Regenerosity, which is Realliance's sister organization. And we're actually very lucky to have here today the wonderful Faith Flanigan, who's the 360 coordinator of Regenerosity. So we're very excited to welcome Faith into this session. Hello, Faith.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, excellent. Thank you so much for being here with us.
It's great to be here.
Would you like to start off by introducing yourself to everyone watching?
Yeah, so I'm Faith Flanigan. I'm the 360 lead for Regenerative, which is a program that accelerates capacity for grassroots organizations, mostly in the Amazon, India, and East Africa.
Excellent, amazing. And we were just talking to Arnima Jain earlier from TBS.
Excellent.
And she was telling us a bit about a program that you both co-developed together. And I'd love to hear a bit more about this regenerative capacity development framework that you use as a co-design model. Can you tell us a bit about this framework?
Yeah, so we have been working on a framework called the Regenerative Capacity Development Program, which is, it was founded or thought up by one of our co-founders, Ruth Andrade, and the rest of the team. And the idea behind it is that we use all 8 forms of capital. So we use everything from financial capital to natural capital to environmental capital and social capital. And then we use this other framework that's based on Regenesis called Will, Being, and Function. So we have a design process that we work through, which is a 1-month co-design process. And we've worked through that with Taran Bharat Sang, our partners at Timbuktu Collective, some of our partners, other partners in India, including Navdanya, and Earth Forever, as well as our partners in East Africa. And so the process is really about really co-designing this phase of development and framing where the projects are in their state of building out their project goals and their project plan. So the co-development process is a process where we go through building the project plan together, instrumenting financial goals and financial development for them, and with them, sorry, not for them, with them. And then we also work on a timeline. We work through kind of what's the hero story? How do they actually develop their project and their programs, and how do we build capacity so that we can actually amplify their work. So it's both Regenerosity and the project partners doing a lot of this work. And what that ends up being is a 1-month process where we do a series of interviews with anticipatory questions, including, how might we develop, a biodiverse system throughout, your project, or there's a number of different questions that we ask that are really based on how might we build into a structure that builds capacity with the work that you're doing and for the work you're doing.
It sounds like such a rich process, and it sounds very similar to a design process that we've been exploring in this series. So I'd love to ask, what is the kind of product that you come out of this 1 month with? Like, what do they have to then go and implement? What does it physically look like?
So right now we're working with projects on a 2-year basis, and the physicality looks like some of our partners are building a regenerative farm, which could be a training ground for permaculturalists, or for mushroom production, or for coffee production, regenerative coffee production. It often looks like co-designing a program that leads to further goals and further implementation that can be actually resourced and built for the community, with the community. And oftentimes it's with women or girls, it's with community members, smallhold farmers. We really are working to leverage the work of the project partners to actually get to where they're trying to go within their project. So oftentimes these are projects that are kind of a mid-stage of their projects. And so from there, they build their program to work with a larger community or government officials. Yise is a really good example of this in Uganda, where they're actually building a training ground for permaculture farming in the refugee camp that they're working in. And a lot of the community members have taken it up, including the whole police department where the community farm is. And so it's really impactful.
Wow. It's really amazing to hear.
Yeah.
And so you go through, you mentioned this co-design process with every partner that you work with, and you kind of go through these various stages. And why do you feel that that's necessary? Why not just have maybe a template or format and then replicate that design across the different projects?
So we feel like understanding context is really important. We understand that our partners who are actually living within that context know far more than we do about the community, the culture, the work that they're doing, and what their needs are. And so we feel like this co-design process is really instrumental in getting to a place where we can actually help to build capacity coming from them, as opposed to us dictating where their capacity needs are. And so by doing that, we build out kind of the nested scales, which are part of the initial interview questions within the framework, and building across scales as opposed to just building, in a hierarchical way. So.
It's so wonderful, the work that you do. I know from Realliance, many of your partners have been and currently are Realliance members. So we've seen the success that comes from the design process and the work that they're doing. And I was wondering, for people watching, is Regenerosity something that they can get involved with? Is this ongoing? How can people hear more from you?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. It's a great question. So people can get involved by reaching out to us on regenerosity.world, which is our website. And there's multiple different ways to get involved. We have a webinar coming up.
Faith, thank you so much for being with us. It's been a pleasure to chat with you and to hear more about Regenerosity's work and the design process you use. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. We really appreciate the work that you're doing at Realliance as well.
Thank you.
Always great to work together. All right.
Wow, it was fantastic to hear from Faith and her experience with the Regenerative Capacity Development Framework. And I think as we design, so as we put our visions and all the things that we've mapped down onto paper, it's really interesting, I think, to come from a space of ethics. So in permaculture design, there are 3 core ethics that we call people care, earth care, and fair share. And permaculture designers always design from these ethics. So almost everything we do is through the lens of these 3 core ethics. So it can also bring us some interesting questions as we begin our design, as we begin thinking about how our practices might look kind of in reality, bringing these ideas to life. So for example, when we think of people care, we might think of, how does our work, how does our designing affect the community around us? Not only affect the community, but how is it in participation and collaboration with those around us? How does it also affect the way that we work together? So we might think of collaboration and collaborative governance. So how is it that we actually work together as a team and make decisions as a team? So these are some questions that you might start to ask yourself. With earth care, we might start to think of questions such as, how does my work help or be in collaboration with the ecology surrounding the land, or the biodiversity that exists on the land, the native species, whether that's beautiful wild animals or plants, fungi, and more. So we might think, how does our work affect the earth around us? And of course, fair share, we love to overcome this idea of privatized resource and privatized wealth and start to think, how can we share fairly? How can what we're creating benefit the most people? How can the resources that we're creating through our beautiful design, whether that's an abundance of food and vegetables, or whether it's an abundance of art and culture and life that we're creating through our designs, how is that shared beyond just the confines of our land or the space where we are, and is shared more equitably outwards with more people? So we might think of these core ethics as a kind of guide for us to create change as we design. And we might also think on different scales, and scales is a really interesting question in regeneration.
Exactly. And, when we think regeneratively, we're thinking from all these different perspectives. We're trying to take a whole systems view as much as is possible. And I love, as you mentioned, the three ethics. I think they kind of bring different dimensions. They allow our thinking to be a bit more intersectional than it might otherwise be. A lot of our members at Realliance, you could describe their work as predominantly being maybe environmentally related, but that is just really one aspect. And that's the beauty of regeneration, bringing in culture, bringing in social systems, bringing in all of this. So another kind of starting point, more questions and points to consider when visioning and designing from a regenerative whole systems holistic lens is this idea of scales or zones. So just reflecting at this stage of the kind of designing regenerative change process, what do you need to think of in terms of how your project is going to impact or be related to yourself, your community, your maybe wider bioregion, the world? There are so many various stages that you can think bigger and bigger, but also a lot of people might start at community level, how to think more internally. So as you can see in this resource, we've got some questions here for you to consider what your impact might mean or what your planning might need to take consideration of at these different stages. And as James mentioned, the three ethics, I think bringing that and the zones together, if we're thinking of, people care at a world level, that might bring some really interesting questions that you might not naturally consider if you're just starting from kind of a more simple kind of ring-fenced project approach. And, it makes it easier to look at where maybe livelihoods can be brought in, maybe resilience to disasters. A lot of these elements are really core considerations for many of the Realliance members. So we will have these resources available in a link in the description and on the Realliance website as well if you want to, have a go yourself.
Yeah, please get involved and use these resources and share them widely if you think it would be useful for your community as well too. We look forward to hearing what you think in the chat box below as well too. But something I find interesting about this idea of zones and about scaling across different levels is, of course, we can't just, like we were saying earlier, we can't just replicate work. It's not about just copying and pasting work that we see elsewhere, because regenerative work is so embedded in the people and the place where we are. It's so contextual, so driven by what exists in place and the culture and the community that is there. So it's interesting to see this across scales, how our work might impact almost like ripple effects on a lake, how it might grow and support others elsewhere as well too. And of course in permaculture we have this, we always point to the edge effect, where, different spaces or different ecosystems, the place where they meet actually has the most diversity and the most richness. So like, for example, the edge of a river with a meadow ecosystem, that space where those two ecosystems meet is usually the richest and the most biodiverse, because so much life can be contained where those two ecosystems meet. And the same, I think, is for this idea of zones. What are the edges of the different zones, whether it be from your own community to space to the wider community? How do those two spaces interact, and what's the uniqueness that emerge from that edge? So I think that's an interesting consideration too.
Exactly. And on your point about community, I really welcome everybody who's watching this to join the Realliance community. It's a great place to share your ideas, whatever stage of the design process you're in, whether you've already got a project, whether you're already, a regenerative practitioner in some sense, or this is something that you want to learn more about and integrate more into your work. You're very welcome to join the Realliance network, share, ask questions, find out how other communities are working and what things are like outside of your context or even elsewhere in your context. It's a great space for discussion, collaboration, peer learning. So everyone's warmly welcome to join, and feel free to follow up with how you've got on with some of these activities that we've proposed.
Yeah, we really look forward to collaborating with you and hearing how this has gone for you. And of course, in 2 months' time, we'll be launching the next of this Designing Regenerative Change series, so stay tuned. And of course, feel free to come back to these videos, whenever you're designing a new program, a new project, or if you'd like to share this with others in your network too. You're very welcome. So thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure to share space with you. And yeah, we look forward to connecting more in the chat box below and in the Realize network.
Yes, thank you so much, everybody. Take care of yourselves and best of luck with your designing.
See you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.